Welcome to the Chiropractic Mindset Mastery Podcast, hosted by Dr. Danny Scahill. Dr. Danny is a doctor of chiropractic, a best-selling author, coach, speaker, and trainer. On the Chiropractic Mindset Mastery Podcast, he interviews other experts so you can glean further insights to help you on your journey to chiropractic mastery.
Welcome to this episode of the Chiropractic Mindset Mastery Podcast. I've got another fantastic guest for you today, Dr. Travis Corcoran. A little bit about Dr. Travis. Travis is a thought leader, a principled advocate, and a powerful voice for the integrity of our profession. As the president of the International Federation of Chiropractors and Organizations, he stands at the helm of one of chiropractic's most influential global bodies, fighting to preserve and promote the core values that define who we are. He's also an Amazon best-selling author of Restoring Reason, a bold and timely book that challenges the erosion of logic and clarity in both healthcare and culture and calls for a return to objective, principled thinking. But the depth does not stop there. He's a graduate of the very first class of the Diplomate of Academy of Chiropractic Philosophers, a distinction that speaks volumes about his commitment to the intellectual and philosophical foundations of chiropractic. Without further ado, welcome to the CMM podcast, mate. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on here, Danny.
Most welcome, mate. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
In chiropractic specifically, that was, I started first, I was doing nuclear engineering in the Navy. And when I got out, I went back to school, back to the University of Kentucky, where initially my plan was to go to dental school. Grades were going really good. It was easy after the military discipline, I suppose. So then I set my sights a bit higher, was interested in medicine. So I just switched to pre-med, but actually finished my degree in philosophy, which allowed me to still do the pre-med stuff. But then once I got accepted to med school, I just followed a general practitioner around. And he was the first one to show me a little bit more on the inside of the world of medicine and pharmaceuticals. And he gave me a pretty, I would say, direct insight into a little bit more of the corruption. And it kind of tainted my view. So that's when I just went, after I graduated, I went back, I became disillusioned with medicine. So I went back to work as an engineer. After a couple of years, I used to say unfortunately, but fortunately I hurt my back really bad. And one of the fellow engineers, a British gentleman, Brian Rippengale, he recommended me to a chiropractor. Reluctantly, I went, thinking this is crazy. But man, so much changed there, Danny, that immediately my back started feeling better, but these other things happened too. I stopped using my asthma inhaler. I stopped using my glasses, and I didn't really understand what was going on. So I became very inquisitive with the chiropractor, what's going on? And thankfully for me, she was very principled, and she answered everything in a principled way to like the true objectives and principles of chiropractic, which led me to think, like many of us, why doesn't everyone know this? So it was 4 months after my first chiropractic correction, that I was seated at Palmer Davenport for my first day of class as chiropractic. From there, just kind of after school, I worked in Malaysia for a year on my own and learned a lot of lessons from that. It's a third world country, but after that, I was offered a position in the Netherlands, where I worked for just under 2 years for another company, very pain-based focused, just wasn't very fulfilling. So that's when I opened my own. And long story short, now we're at 29 offices with about 60 associates under my own brand, and doing our best to maintain the integrity of the profession here in Europe.
That's awesome, mate. So tell us a little bit about the evolution to get to 29 practices. That's some feat, mate. How did that come about?
Well, it certainly wasn't. A lot of people think that I set out with these goals to do this, but it kind of just all happened organically. I just always said yes to chiropractic when opportunities would pop up, or someone needed help, or hey, my practice is going to close down. And I just shuddered at the thought of a chiropractic office closing. So I was like, well, maybe I could take it over. And that's how I got to the second one. And then same with a third. And then, well, I can't be in three offices at once. So you get an associate. And then I learned to train associates well or teach them. And with some of the graduates here in Europe, I guess they were looking for what I was offering, like a deeper understanding of the principles. So that kind of grew and just the opportunity kept coming and we just didn't slow down. So it wasn't that I set out to do it. It's just I set out with this bigger vision to preserve chiropractic in its traditional sense, according to the principles and objectives, like the deductive science that the founders and Stevenson, Strauss, and Sinnott have all written about and spoke about. I just try to hold to those, and this is the result.
Love that, mate. So how many would be in your team then? Have you got 29 officers? I imagine it's a substantial team, isn't it?
Yeah, we got the chiros. We have about 60 chiros roughly, and then a lot of amazing assistants as well, as you can imagine. And then the culture kind of sets the tone. So the right people stay, and the people that don't really match the culture, they find their way out. It's never a difficult exit, usually, and they just decide to go elsewhere. But we grow with the right people because the culture is set pretty well.
Nice. And what is it you did initially to instill the culture and then grow that culture?
Well, just to give. Like my good buddy Grant Dennis, he's chairman of the IFCO. He says it best. I've said it in other ways, but I really like the way he says it. Is that if you want something back from chiropractic, you have to give to it. And so I give everyone equal opportunity, equal chance. There's plenty here that we can provide for them. We do philosophy calls every Friday for a half hour. That's every Friday. They're not mandatory, but it's open invite for everyone on the team. And so we kind of hold a space where everyone can explore the philosophy of chiropractic, all of its principles and objectives.
Nice. I love that. Grant was on an episode not so long ago. He's a great guy, isn't he?
Oh, I don't think people understand how hard that man works. And that's why we share very much our same with Christian Caswell. These are two people whose character, values, and perspectives match mine so closely that it makes for a great working relationship.
Nice. Love that, mate. So who were your early mentors and inspirations in chiropractic and who are they today?
My early inspirations were mostly Joe Strauss. I really loved his books, his philosophy text, and of course, Refined by Fire. Those were some of the most profound. Of course, Strang. Now, I've never met Strang, and sadly, I didn't get to meet Joe Strauss because he was probably the most influential in terms of authors. The most influential speaker was very much Reggie Gold. I think Gold and Strauss really promoted the third paradigm, which to me is yeah, it's where we're at, the most advanced evolution of our philosophy right now. And that's also where I get the objective straight mentality from as well. So I would say those guys, but contemporary right now, Liam Schubel was just one of the simplest statements that the bigger the vision, the bigger the life. So instead of looking at like, how do I grow my practice? How do I do these small, like short-sighted goals? You're looking at like, how do I get as many people on the planet with the opportunity to see chiropractic care and have this interference removed from the transmission of innate force? And when I looked bigger, that kind of opened things up. Also, he's a good example of gratitude. Every time I'm with him, even if he's enjoying the most simple, mundane thing, he just throws out his arms and it's just like, thank you, chiropractic. He is thankful and grateful to chiropractic for everything that exists in his life, and it's something I've learned to do the same. I know that everything I'm benefiting from and the exciting life and all the rewards I get are from chiropractic, and it's just because I serve, give, and chiropractic has given so much back. And Grant Dennis says it best. And if all we ever did was take from chiropractic, it's unsustainable, and the ship would sink. Right? If this was a giant cruise ship and all anyone ever did was take from it, there was no one to maintain the seaworthiness, this thing would be at the bottom of the ocean.
That's a good point, well made, isn't it? Yeah, that reminds me of one of my early mentors. He always used to say, chiropractic can give you everything you ever want. So yeah, that's a good reminder. Absolutely. So in terms of mindset. If you had one, maybe a maximum of three go-to um, strategies, if you're having a shit day and you want to get your head out the shed and back in the game as quick as, what would you tend to?
Well, that's a good question, Danny, because we all have shit days, and there's sometimes you get knocked off course or off track. So what I do is just try to remember the North Star, what guides me. And so I always come back to purpose. And so when I'm trying to help people with mindset, I want to make sure that first they have a purpose. Too many people are just setting goals without a purpose. So your goals should just simply fulfill the purpose. Most people, their goal is to be happy, which I think is also always going to lead to nowhere. Happiness is an emotion. But this sense of fulfillment, to me, that's much better. But if you don't know what the purpose is, then you don't know what you're feeling. So I know specifically word for word what my purpose is. I try to help others find theirs. And then I set my goals to fulfill the purpose. So I would say that's the first thing. Know what your purpose is. And it should be very specific. And then the second thing is gratitude, which we just talked about, like be grateful. And then I would say the third is responsibility. Nothing, there is no growth without taking responsibility and accountability for everything that you do, because there's no chance of changing or fixing anything when you're shirking responsibilities, blame, justification, excuses. That doesn't take anyone anywhere.
Nice. I love that, mate. So in your a previous career of yours, you mentioned you were an engineer.
Yeah,
What did you learn as an engineer that really helped in chiropractic? Because I'd imagine there's quite a few parallels.
indeed. Yeah, the main thing for me was structure, the relationship between structure and function. These things cannot be separate. Everything, and nature is the greatest example of it too. Every structure perfectly matches function. And that to me has been really the best. It also kind of helped with, working on like a nuclear power plant. This sounds weird, but it really helped me understand anatomy and physiology, because everything in the human body is like just this more sophisticated, efficient, concise version of all these mechanical concepts I'd learned with like heat exchange and filtration and valves and pumps, and all those things are happening on a cellular level, organ system level. But basically, I knew all the functional concepts. I just had to learn a new language. Well, it's not called the centrifugal pump or this or that. It's actually called this in biology. So it helped quite a bit.
Nice. Yeah, I would have thought it did. Yes, that's cool. In terms of business, over the years, obviously being you've got it's quite a huge operation, isn't it? 29 practices. Certainly seems that way might not seem that way to you, but from the outside, it seems like quite a large operation. What were some of the biggest business challenges that you've had over the years? How did you overcome them, and what did you learn in the process?
I would say the biggest challenge is, putting yourself out there and trusting others, like your colleagues and your teammates. You think you're going to do everything your way. And I see this with a lot of chiropractors. So many are micromanagers. I'm going to do it all myself. How many chiropractors do you know right now? They are their marketer. They do everything, right? They're like the brand specialists. And it's a real shame, because then the more you're doing all these things, the more diluted your chiropractic care is and your chiropractic message and your chiropractic understanding. So once I began to, I guess, detach, kind of let go and trust specialists and then trust the people on my team, that that was the biggest challenge. And once I learned to let go and trust, and sometimes you get burned, but if you never trust anyone, you're never going to go anywhere. So you just take from it what you get. And now, I mean, I couldn't do this if it wasn't for having an amazing team and also letting go of ownership. So we switched to like a franchise licensing model. So I have many of them are licensees, and I would say more than half are franchisees, and then the rest would be licensees. So that allows them to be like they have ownership and the skin in the game, and we all share a common vision and mission. So that's what allows us to kind of scale and grow bigger. And then the beauty of it is we all work together and we're all teammates.
Nice. I love that. What would you say is the distinction between franchisee and licensee?
Well, the main, what's offered. So the licensee, they're in charge of doing most of it themselves. Here in the Netherlands, they're all franchises. So I run the franchise. I provide all the management, SEO, SCA, the marketing, the website, the software, all the subscription fees that do everything. All that would be included. I try to contribute as much as I can to their continuing education requirements. So that's in the franchise. All that's taken care of. Now, outside of the Netherlands, well, it's going to be a different website. It's not topchiro.nl. It's going to be topchiro this, and then they have their systems and so it's really for them. So then what they're paying basically is like an annual licensing fee to use the brand.
I see.
And I only license with people that I know will maintain the integrity of the brand and stick to our objective straight third paradigm approach.
Yeah, love that. Brilliant. And so across your all of your practices, what's working really well right now?
Oof. A lot of things work really well, but there's always the things that can work better. And I would say, I'm not deflecting from the question, but what I found more beneficial, of course you need to reflect on the things that go well. But what's really helped with the success is finding where can you sharpen the blade always a little bit more? Where are the rough edges? What can be better? And that's probably the biggest challenge to communicating to the associates, communicating to the team, making sure they communicate well to the community and the clients that they serve. Right now, the communication goes well, but it's also the place that can go better. I say that because it's my perspective that communication is probably the most neglected, but incredibly one of the most important things in growing the profession. I know that D.D. Palmer never attended a single technique seminar ever, yet he got incredible results with Harvey Lillard. It wasn't because he was doing tricep twitches and practicing his technique and all that, right? But he still got really good results, and that was primarily based on two things: his understanding of what he was doing. That's one. That's at the base, the foundation. You have to understand what you're doing and be able to relate it and communicate it to others. And since he communicated it to a deaf guy, I'd say that his communication was also quite good.
Yes, agreed. So in terms of communication then, in your practices, healthcare classes or induction classes or whatever word or phrase you want to use, I'm guessing they have been and are important in your practices. Why do you think that is so important for associates and business owners to be able to convey that message?
Well, much like most people, I really rarely invest in something I don't understand. I know some people do based on emotion or like some inherent visceral need or desire to be thin or sexy or to make more money. That's probably why they purchase a lot of the stuff they do online. But I don't think there's anything more important than health, because you can't enjoy any of those other things that I just mentioned, like being thin and fit and all the things that we do invest in, even money. Without health, you'd give it all up to get your health back. So that's why those two things, not just communication, because you can be a great communicator, but if you have this deficit in understanding chiropractic and what it means to someone, how it can impact their life, well, then what do you really have to communicate? It's like you don't have anything to offer or give. The clients won't understand the value and significance of chiropractic care and a healthy, self-regulated organism if you don't. And so the better that we understand it, I can't communicate someone to a level above my own understanding. That's why I think the more the chiropractor understands about their own profession, then certainly the more they can convey and communicate, and the more they're going to lift everyone up so that they also can make better informed decisions.
Nice. Love that, mate. So in terms of your journey going forwards at 29 practices and counting, what's next on your vision? Where's Travis Corcoran and his empire going?
I wouldn't say it's my empire, but it's one that I share with, like I said, with a lot of amazing colleagues, thankfully. Thank you, chiropractic. I'm very grateful. But where I'm going next is the same place I always have been, and that is to protect and preserve chiropractic in its deductive basis. BJ wrote I think it was over 30 pages on the difference between deduction and induction. So he clearly understood, underpinned, and reasserted the importance of logic and reason in our profession. This profession is built, it is a deductive science. This is what Strauss says, Stevenson, the Palmers, Strang, Sinnott, every accomplished author or knowledgeable person in our profession knows it's based on deductive reasoning. So I will continue to try to push that forward, share it, express it, empower other chiropractors, same thing. And whether that's through the Academy of Chiropractic Philosophers offered by Sherman, or with the International Federation of Chiropractors and Organizations, the IFCO, just wherever we're on the right path, and I'm asked to serve, like this podcast, for instance, I don't hesitate to say no. I always say yes to chiropractic. Wherever it can help, share, and help grow chiropractic and chiropractors, then I'm all in. So it kind of takes me where it's going.
Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. So in your book, Restoring Reason, how did that book come about? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the book, it was published 22nd of February in 2022. And it came out of a necessity or an observation that many people are drawing their conclusions from emotion. They determine the truth based on what they feel rather than what's been either empirically or rationally observed or concluded. And that's another thing I like about Strauss. He mentions that right at the beginning of his book. He talks about epistemology. How do we know what we know? And many people, it's either through custom or tradition or appeal to authority. And then he also says the most dangerous, but unfortunately the most popular, is emotion. People will determine what they think the truth is based on how they feel. I saw how detrimental this was, and it also led to a lot of frustration when you're trying to have a discussion and Thomas Paine actually said something similar. He goes, like, to argue with someone who has renounced the use of reason is like administering medicine to a dead horse. So I thought, I'm not even going to write a book about chiropractic. Like, let's lay down the foundation first. And how do I help people better understand the function of their mind? Because that's the garden or the soil where any seed could ever take root and grow. So if we just constantly neglect the foundation of our educated mind, which starts at 0, luckily innate intelligence is always 100%. That's perfect. Why do we need to mess with that? But we've neglected in this profession too much. I would say not just chiropractors, but most people, we neglect the educated mind, which is something you can cultivate and nurture and grow. And when you leave it into the hands of others, well, certainly your goals and your ambitions may likely not be your own. So tending to your own mind is like the primary thing I think we should all commit to. And that's what inspired me to write the book, to help fellow humans, my fellow family here, like, understand why this means so much to them. So many people would ask me, like, about the 7 classical liberal arts, because I would lecture on it all the time. Where can I learn more? And I would always recommend Sister Mary and Joseph's book on the Trivium. And people just won't read it because it reads like a text. It's not very sexy, and it has no appeal to what's in it for me. So when I wrote my book, I tried to focus more on, this is how your life could benefit if, like, look at the circumstances. These are the consequences if you don't think for yourself, and here's the consequences if you do. And then with less, I guess more of a easy elementary read over at least the first 3 liberal arts. And that's what inspired me to write the book.
Nice. Excellent stuff, mate. I love what you said just now about tending to your own mind. And on that note, do you do any form of meditation in addition to the things you mentioned earlier about, mastering your own mindset?
I personally don't meditate. I've tried. Maybe I just don't do it right, but I do something that people would consider similar, and that's contemplation. So find that quite, I guess to some people this is meditation, but just time to myself, the problem at hand in front of me, all distractions outside, and break that problem down to its fundamental parts and first principles, and work it from there. So I would say I'm more of a contemplator than a meditator. If it's that similar to people, I guess that works for them. However, when I hear meditation in terms of empty your mind, I cringe at the threat of emptying my mind and stop thinking. That doesn't resonate with me at all. I think it's a great gift, the educated mind. And the Palmers even said, and Stevens said, like the greatest organ of adaptation or adaptability is the educated mind. So why would you neglect that? And now, if what they meant is empty your mind of distracting thoughts, sure, I can get behind that. And that is a challenge to stay focused on one thing. But the idea of stop thinking, or like I've often heard too, like thinking is the root of all problems. And I'm like, well, please tell me, where's all this thinking happening? Because when I look around the world today, I see an incredible deficiency in thinking.
True story, mate. True story. Yeah, that's a common misconception about meditation, isn't it? People think, oh, people often think, oh, I can't do it, or I tried that. Like I tried chiropractic, where
Yeah,
you got adjusted once in your life, and it didn't work.
yeah,
So the meditation thing, yeah, like it's impossible, as most people work out for themselves, to stop thoughts. There's one time to my mind that you can stop thoughts, and that's when you cease living.
yeah,
You can't turn the brain off. So that's one of the big misconceptions about meditation. Because I've been meditating over 15 years now, and it's like I do TM, transcendental
mm,
meditation, and it's not about stopping thinking. It's like it's
yeah,
supposed to be effortless.
yeah,
You're not supposed to try to meditate, you know what I mean? So that's just for anyone out there who's tried to stop thinking. It doesn't work.
yeah.
It's
I like
futile, isn't it?
the way you're saying it. Like that's exactly it. You can't stop thinking. However, I guess with like transcendental meditation, you're going to have thoughts regardless. So you can follow. There's two you can follow your thoughts. That's going to lead you to some insight. You can direct your thoughts, focus your thoughts. But to actually stop the thinking is, I think that's an exercise in futility. And it's
Agreed.
often why, and probably like to what you're saying, why most people it doesn't work for them, and that's why I just switched the con like the descriptor. I just call it contemplation instead, because I prefer the direction of thought. And yeah, but I also like to follow the thought too. This is why like a great philosophical discussion with someone, to follow where the discussion leads is a great stretch. That's something I prefer to do with others.
Yeah, nice. I love that. At what point did you fascinate? Because it seems that you're absolutely fascinated by philosophy. When did that fascination with philosophy begin, if that's the right way of me describing it there?
I think that's a great way to say it. For me, it happened in American universities. When you do an undergrad, like a bachelor's degree, you have to take some minimum courses in the humanities or liberal arts, social science, things like this. So to fill some of those requirements, I took this intro philosophy class, and that was really what kicked it off for me. And from there, it just hasn't stopped. And it's a funny thing too. Philosophy, with the etymology of the word, of course, as you know, is like love of wisdom. So in fact, philosophy itself is kind of an emotion, and that's funny coming from a guy who's like, you know, emotion is reaction. We need to direct our mind, and thoughtful responses is preferable to emotional reaction. But the funny thing is, philosophy itself is a love of wisdom, and wisdom is the expression of knowledge and understanding, or better said, correct knowledge and true understanding. And that's something I've always loved, because I see correct knowledge and true understanding is very empowering, right? Knowledge is not power, but understanding that knowledge right? That's how I can stand up to objections and handle discussions or debates, defend points. So to me, an understanding that was empowering. And then rhetoric or communication, that's influence.
Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. So I'm just thinking, if you were to go back to the very beginning of your career, is there anything you'd do differently if you did it over again?
Oof. I think about that a lot. And what I've learned is that these opportunities to start all over, they kind of come up all the time anyway. Like when we open a new office, okay, what would I do different? Here's what we're going to do better. And a colleague of mine recently, she wants to start a whole new brand of like our current brand. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. Now what we can do is here's what I would do if I'm starting up a whole enterprise all over from the beginning. I would do this. And basically what I would do different is more initial thoughts. Like I beginning was kind of driven myself by like passion and emotion. And that led to a lot of great lessons, of course, but also a lot of heartache. However, I just don't regret those. Like like you do in the moment, of course, like, oh, this is so painful. And then later, you take from it. Like anyone who's failed, I don't know many people that are of great success that haven't failed at least several times.
100%. Most of the I think you've just intimated there, most of the biggest learnings come from the pain and the when things go wrong, don't they?
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. So, is there any questions you wish that I would have asked that I haven't yet asked?
Oh, nothing comes to mind right now. But if we ever meet again or speak again, there's probably plenty of questions I have for you. Like, why did you decide to do this podcast? What drives you? Why would you reach out to some guy to get him on a call? And like, what motivates you to share this stuff with other chiropractors?
That's a great question, and I don't think anyone's ever asked me that on this podcast. Um, so on other podcasts, yeah, definitely. Many reasons, really. You know, giving back to chiropractic, you talked a lot about give, give, give. So giving back to the profession, there's so many amazing chiropractors I've had on this show so far, yourself included, and loads more booked on to come on. And everybody's got their own story, and everybody can add value. You know, you got 29 practices, you know, the amount of moving parts that must, when I think about it, the amount of moving parts in that enterprise is phenomenal. And there's Liam Schubel's been on the show a couple of times, amazing guy. So getting all the, like, was it Tony Robbins or somebody of that note said, standing on the shoulders of giants. So that's what he was a giant himself, obviously. You know, he is a giant, should I say? And in many ways. So getting loads of different perspectives on the show, because not everybody resonates with every person, do they? So having loads of different of what I would term the chiropractic greats on the ones that are still alive, I hasten to add, on the show gives people opportunity to learn and then apply that knowledge. Don't know whether that answers your question, mate.
Yeah, it does for sure. I like that what you said about the different. This is one of the beauty. I love this profession so much, and the amount of opportunity in it for every type of person is incredible. You can be an author, a researcher, a publisher, a speaker, a clinician, an instructor. You could start a school. You could write a book. There's just so much available, or a little bit of everything. Maybe be a great associate, maybe be a great owner, maybe be a great coach. But there's so much to do. Like there's so many great researchers in our field, great authors, publishers, speakers. Like chiropractic is amazing. Provides so much opportunity. Or podcaster also.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fantastic having you on the show today, mate. I know how busy you are, so really appreciate you taking out the time to be with us on the show.
Absolute pleasure.
Nice one, mate. So, where is the best place for people to reach out to if they want to connect or reach out and ask a question? Where do they find you online?
I'm always available on the Facebook Messenger if you reach out to me on Messenger, or you can just always send me an email at Travis at restoringreason.com. And I would encourage anyone that's struggling. One of the worst things I hate to hear is like someone who's disillusioned with the profession or not happy with where they're at in the profession or not being fulfilled from it. And it would kill me that they would leave and not give it a real chance before they have the opportunity to understand it better and how important it is. I'm convinced, you can't convince me, you can't change my mind. Chiropractic has all the potential to change the world for the better. And some people are still missing that. So if they're ever struggling, I would encourage them to reach out, Travis at restoringreason.com, or to get more involved in chiropractic. And if you have the same vision as me and you want to keep the ship going, you'd rather be a sail than an anchor to hold this thing back, then consider joining the IFCO. The IFCO is a great organization. It's been one of the best things I've ever done ever since I joined the IFCO. The connections, the network. This is where I met some of the most successful people in chiropractic, and they've always been there for me when I reached out. And I like to know that they're in my corner and doing the right thing for this profession.
I love that, mate. That's fantastic. Be a sail rather than an anchor. Love that. Brilliant. Thanks again, mate. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
You've been listening to Dr. Danny Scahill on the Chiropractic Mindset Mastery Podcast, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All the best, guys. Take care.
You've been listening to Dr. Danny Scahill on the CMM Podcast, where we help you grow your business without killing yourself. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Check out our free masterclass on chiropracticmindsetmastery.com.